South of France, beautiful sunshine, shopping, and of course, rosé wine, but also Ricard. Invented by Paul Ricard, he also built a racetrack not far from this medieval town of Le Castellet. It's been 6 weeks since the Fanatec Arena made its way south from Imola in Italy to here in Paul Ricard, and it was a dominating performance from Neil Verhagen of BMW's ROWE Racing. If you missed it, here are the highlights. Welcome everyone to Season 2 of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series. This year BMW have absolutely come in aggressively.
And look at this, Nicky TV's right there on the back of Alex Arca, almost gives him a little tap. Now lines up for a go on the inside, last of the late breakers to Tamburello, done it, bit of contact, but Nicky Team goes through. Silver competition with the pros up front as over the timing line. The next little battle, Fabian Schiller tries to get up past the Audi in the hands of Lorenzo Petresi there, and should be able to do it. I would have thought the grunt of the Mercedes carries him by, does it on the outside line? Yes it does. So he's got a toe coming up towards the line, he pulls out of the draft now, makes his move, side by side they run up towards the timing line. Yuki Inamoto on the outside here, but it's going to be the inside on the run up towards Tamburello. The road will come to him. This is for 8th overall. It is for 3rd in the Silver Cup, and Yuki Inamoto goes through, makes the move stick. Really nice move that, heading into Tamburello.
And here he comes, Giotto is very late on the brakes. There's a little bit of contact between the two of them to make the pass stick, and that's going to be one for the race stewards, because he was very late. There was an opening, the door was cracked open, but he had to really force the issue.
He's going to be out this time. It is going to be a win, and a dominant win for Neil Verhagen, who works his way out of Rivazza, heads now up towards the timing line, and it is going to be a win for BMW. It is going to be a win for an all-smiling Neil Verhagen. Checker flag is at the ready, and honours go to Neil Verhagen. He wins round 1 of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series.
It was an absolutely dominating performance by BMW Junior driver and Rover Racing driver Neil Verhagen. Bigger gaps than we've ever seen before, but he was brand new to ACC and brand new to this championship, so I had to meet him. Neil, it was kind of the most dominant victory we saw in ACC over our Pro Series from last year as well. Just tell me kind of the preparation that you went through to get to that point.
Yeah, there was a lot of preparation I went through with Nils Najak, so I have to say a big thank you to him for all the work that he put in with me, because yeah, without him it wouldn't have been possible.
We set up a small program, and we decided that we'd bring the BMW juniors together with the professionals that are in the sim racing space already, and we spent actually several weeks bringing the juniors up to speed in sim racing, not just driving wise, but how the games work, what are the quirks. Also for our sim race to find the differences between game and real life. And once we all got the hang of it, we started really diving deep, and I think Neil showed very nicely that it worked out so far.
Yes, he sits inside and he plays on the game, but his knowledge for car setup and his knowledge for driving is incredibly high, so I have to give it to him. He's super talented at what he does, and it's a really good connection to work with him. He's super intelligent, everything makes sense, and he can explain stuff in such a nice way that, you know, for me the game is foreign, and for him I think he has a very good understanding of what happens in the real world as well too, so he can really explain stuff to me to make it make sense for me, and that's really how it works so well for the both of us.
He's been very open from the first moment, really, and I think that helped him pick it up in a good way. Once your mind is ready to accept that there's something you need to learn, even if this is your job normally, and that's where the data really became really helpful when we put our laps side by side, and I tried to talk him through what we are trying to do, and then he was seeing what he was trying to do, and then he adapted from there to pick up our driving style.
Setup wise, are you taking the setup of this car and just dumping it on the virtual one?
No, we do a lot of work together, which is fun.
We bring in our knowledge and experience to build a setup for them, and then we start driving reference laps, try to find the limit to give them benchmark.
Normally I'm quite lucky because he gives me quite a good baseline to start off on, and we make a couple tweaks and adjustments here and there for preference, but at the end of the day, we have to, it's a team, both of us are working together, and we need to find what's best. BMW have taken a big part in being serious about this. I myself have been very serious about this. ROWE Racing have been very serious about this, and it really matters a lot now. You know, we have points going for the championship now inside the real racing. To score every point available is super crucial, and with Nils, we've been able to make a good start so far, so hopefully we can keep this up.
Let's now take a quick look at the circuit Paul Ricard, one of 167 different layouts that this circuit can offer, with our silver points leader, Alex Acker. Alex, thank you very much for joining us through the final turn of this lap. Is it a place you enjoy racing?
Well, yeah, it's a nice track. Obviously, it's just kind of tricky, to be fair. It doesn't seem to be that tricky, but I think also on the simulator it's also quite tricky, which is quite surreal, because honestly, it's like the differences and the similarities are quite like evenly matched. So I think all of this is it's a good way to measure the importance of sim racing as well. So I think this is also why I enjoy this track a lot.
A lot of curb use around the lap.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think this is the way to go in both reality and in sim. So just like use as much track as possible, just to like be hard to the car, kind of, and just hit the curves as much as possible, and to use like any inch of the track that is offered to you.
This is a vital corner, isn't it? Because you're coming onto the Mistral Straight, 1.1 kilometers, and you need maximum amount of speed.
Yes, and you feel it. Like as soon as you just do a little mistake, and the TC is like just distracting you on the way to the end of the straight, you feel, you just see on the dash, oh no, I'm slowing down, and this like costs you a lot of time and a lot of confidence as well for the next corner.
What do you do on the straight? What are you thinking about?
Well, just pretty much looking at the air condition and just like getting everything ready. Maybe even opening the window now. Just basically just relaxing, because the next corner is quite tough. It's a pretty quick corner. In this sim, it's in fifth gear. In real racing, it's both. Some people are doing it in sixth, some people are doing it in fifth gear. So,
okay.
But both ways are possible.
It seems as though you need two real different setups to the track, because the last part of the lap is quite sinuous.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's not pretty much even anywhere, so you can't use one way to go, let's say. You have to use multiple ways and multiple setups, and especially the left tires are pretty much burning down, which is also the case in reality. So I think it's quite pretty much close to the reality.
And that last corner is so clumsy, isn't it?
It is. Coming from all the long corners and all the like fast corners and all that stuff to the pretty slow corner, it's a bit tricky, but you just have to finally manage it at some point, and just like afterwards you just stick to it.
Well, that's a lap around the Paul Ricard circuit. You've been really loving this Pro Series esports events over the year. I do. Yeah, from the first moment on, I tried to give it all, and from now on, with also grabbing 5 points for the championship is also like a huge thing. And yeah, with that being said, I think it's pretty important for us to just try to like squeeze everything down, every point for the championship, which is also close. And yeah, I'm happy to be offered to drive in this series, and happy for the invitation as well from the team. So I'm pretty glad to have this series, to be fair. Alex, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have met Neil Verhagen, our leader in the pros category, and we've now met Alex Acker, our leader in the silver category, but we've only had one round. Here is round two now, coming up. And the standings after the first race of the season in Imola. Neil Verhagen leads with 5 points, ahead of Nicky Team, Jussi Pukala, and a change for Team WRT in fourth position, and the rest of our entry list from the first round. Silver standings, Alex Acker took the victory in the first round ahead of SRO Motorsports Compact, with Vincenzo Sospiri racing in third, Leopard Motorsport and Emil Frey, both changing their drivers for this second round also. And with me is David Addison, who is going to lead us through this 1 hour race here at a bright and sunny Paul Ricard. We're starting at 6 o'clock local time. Welcome, David.
Ben, thanks very much. It's going to be a fascinating race as ever with an all-silver front row. Tommaso Mosca is on pole position with Alex Arca with 30 kilos of silver success ballast with him at the front. The second row is where you find Arthur Rougier for Emil Frey Racing out of the pro category, and last year's race winner here, Kelvin van der Linde's Team WRT Audi. Yuki Nomoto is next with 10 kilos of weight. Nicholas Nielsen alongside ahead of Luca Giotto and Juuso Pohaka. He carries 10 kilos as well. He's out-qualified Janis Fitcher and only 10th Raffaele Marciello ahead of the round one winner Neil Verhagen. He's got 30 kilos on board. Axel Jeffries is alongside. Ezequiel Perez Companc carries 15 kilos. He's alongside Matteo Cairoli ahead of Stuart White and Lorenzo Patrese. Then Jean-Baptiste Simonard and Nicolai Hiergaard. Nicky Thiem is next with Nicholas Bart for company. Lucas Legere lines up 21st alongside Joel Sturm. Then it's Tyler Cook and Sebastian Bode ahead of Marvin Kirchhofer and Stein Schrothorst with Mauro Calamia and Dennis Lind at the back of the grid. Picking a winner out of all of this is well nigh impossible, but unlike the Imola race, we do have to factor in that success ballast, and as ever, we've also got the pit stops to think about as well, and how much that weight is going to really impact, we'll only find out as the race goes on. And we've got a slow starting Arthur Rougier, I fear, there, who is away now just about. Everybody else gets down towards the first corner, down towards turn one, at Verrières. So, pick a winner. On all silver front row, it's got a really interesting shape to this grid.
There's a couple of things that are happening in the arena here, the Fanatec Arena based inside the Paul Ricard circuit. One is that all of the Mercedes AMG drivers are being trained by Williams Esports this weekend. They are on site and have been working with the Mercedes drivers throughout their 3-hour practice window that they've had here today. So Mercedes number one already looking very strong just because of that and that alone. We also have the weights come in, and of course by adding 30 kilos to your car as Victor last time out, that can then affect not only the weight of the car, the acceleration, but then how you set up the car, because it's a little bit lower. So perhaps you need to stiffer springs. It might consume a bit more fuel as well. So those are things to consider. And the seriousness. The guys have spent a long time since our first round in Imola looking at what happened and perhaps digesting that we're getting 5 championship points for the real world out of this. Neil Verhagen has added that to the total of Rover Racing, and that could be the difference between winning and losing come the end of the year.
We've also got our biggest ever grid in the Fanatec GT World Challenge Esports Pro Series, because we've got 28 more rigs brought to Paul Ricard, and this series, of course, supported by Mobileye, which is focusing on innovation as well as technology. Well, I think some are going to have to be very innovative in their way through the traffic, especially Dennis Lind, starting right at the very back of the grid.
I'm seeing some frustration in the middle of our screen there from Arthur Rougier. We saw him slow off the line. I wonder whether Rougier has got a problem with his shifters or has not got them set up particularly well. We've also got Mercedes parked up on the left-hand side. Is that Thomas Mosca just maybe doing a practice start? He gets himself back into position. But Rougier, obviously our champion from last year, if he has got something set up incorrectly on his wheel and all the drivers are able to bespokely change the settings on the steering wheel, then we might have a DNS. We did see on our TV graphics a DNS, but actually that meant they did not qualify. They did start, they will start the race. The likes of Dennis Lind simply missing the ability to qualify, because qualifying changed this year. We don't do it as a separate session with all the cars. They now do it as a hot lap competition on their own after their 3-hour practice session, and Lind simply missed that one out, so he starts from the back.
But I think we've said in the past that he's done quite a lot of sim racing as well as real world racing. If anybody can get through the traffic, it's Dennis Lind. There's also an argument to say that actually staying behind the field for the first couple of corners might put you in a better place, because you're behind any incidents that might pan out. So now everybody gets themselves into that 2x2 rolling start formation, except I can't see Arthur Rougier's car out of all of that. I'm not entirely sure I can see Calvin van der Linde either.
I think both of those are reset into the pits. Whether they'll be allowed to go from the pit lane or whether that is out of the race, that is a huge issue for Calvin van der Linde, who took pole and won last year at this very event. Nothing's changed, and that will be a real shame for the Audi driver.
So we are about to go racing then to get the second round of the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series underway. The front row of the grid, Tommaso Mosca in the Mercedes. It is Alex Arca in the Audi alongside. They come out of the Virage du Pont, make their way up towards the timing line. If the race director is happy with everybody's position, the lights will go green. They do. Mosca makes a good start. Alex Arca slots in behind him. Third away rapidly also Yuki Namoto, and then further back Luca Giotto trying to get himself up through the traffic in the Audi. 3 wide, he's late on the brakes, he's managed to clear 1 row of cars, he's on the outside line, there's a rub, Giotto gets forced out wide, he's not the only one in all of that. As you look at Nicholas Nielsen, he will lose places and others skip back onto the road ahead of him. Giuseppe Hacker was caught up in all of that as well, but a really good getaway by Tommaso Mosca. He will lead down towards turns 3 and 4.
A little bit of kissing from Nicholas Nielsen on Luca Giotto. He's now having a go at Puccola, so there's been a little bit of contact between Ferrari and Audi in both turns 1 and turns 3, and now he's a little bit backing them up. So as they come onto the Mistral Straight, the long 1.1 kilometres, he might not have the momentum that others do. The McLaren particularly, very, very slippery, but we have to go down to 22nd position. No, Dennis Lind up to 18th already. Lind up to 18th, Perez compact in the pits, another really strong driver who we have lost straight away.
So drama then for some, right from the get-go. Dennis Lind picking his way through the order as there, look to the outside line goes Janis Fittke trying to work his way up past Juuso Pahaka. Pahaka in the Attempto Audi on the inside. That's carrying 10 kilos of weight, having been third in the silver class third in the pro class, I should say, last time out. And Alex Arca is on the back then of the race leader. Further down the order, Juuso Pahaka, his teammate, is on the back of Nicholas Nielsen. And the cars then now make their way up towards the completion of the opening lap of the race. Now, up front, you can see that the Mercedes of Tommaso Mosca making good its escape, clear up front for the time being. And what he's trying to do now is continue to build this advantage as the cars accelerate towards the end of the opening lap of the race. So Tommaso Mosca it is who has made good his escape, and he's doing his level best now to build that gap, which of course he's going to need because everybody, Ben, has to make a regulation pit stop in this.
Yeah, absolutely. In the middle part of the race, there's not much to do in the pit stops. You don't change tyres, you don't really need to refuel, so that will be required, but I think we do have a situation in here.
And I think we're going red flag because there has been a drama, and because of a power outage, I think some of the sims have gone down on site, so we're going to re-grid and start again. So as soon as we can, we'll get things back underway. I would imagine without a lap completed, it will be from the original grid, but I look to the stewards here for guidance on that.
Well, I hope that means that the likes of Arthur Rouget might be able to be back in their rigs.
Yes.
Rouget had an issue. He lost Kelvin Van Linde before the start of the race as well. Sebastian Beau was in the pits, and then we lost Esquil Perez Compact straight away. So we would like to see those drivers start in their rightful position. They started, they were supposed to start on row 2, Van der Linde and Rouget, and hopefully they haven't rage exited the building and can't get back in the rigs. But we probably will go complete red flag and complete restart.
So a red flag has been called for by the race direction team. Some drivers have got the message and some haven't. Those I think that have got a rig that's allowing them to do so are continuing to race. But gradually now they're all being told, we'll go again, we'll go again.
Good to see that Arthur Rouget is still in his rig, so
yeah,
he should be able to go again. Kelvin Van der Linde is to the left of your shot at the back row, as he was last year. I see an empty rig at the front, which is a bit of a shame. Can't see exactly who that is, and it's not the Get Speed Mercedes guys, because they are on the other side. So Sebastian Beau, brand new to the championship, another chair empty.
Nicholas
there.
Bourne, possibly.
No, it's over that side, I think.
Oh, I thought that was that side.
Yeah, that way. So Lucas Legere, he wasn't too far back on the grid, was he?
Well, there's some unravelling to do, and as soon as it's been unravelled, we'll have another go at that. And Dennis Lind might be a little bit annoyed because he'd made good progress while others were having dramas around him, but we'll try once more.
What I'm hearing is that Arthur Rouget actually stalled the car.
Oh, right.
And it took too long to then start the car, probably because you haven't programmed a starter button. It's not something you generally need to use. So maybe that was the issue for Arthur, and it does mean that he gets another crack at it, which is great because he's one of our best pedalers out there. He's one of the guys that really enjoys his sim racing and is very, very fast at it, our victor last year. In the front of shot there is Alex Acker, who leads the Silver Cup standings. A bit of a shrug of the shoulders to find out what happened, and we can get ourselves reset. The other one that we didn't even see, I don't think, was Stein Schotthorst. Both Get Speed Mercedes guys really didn't. I don't think even Stein came and practiced. They both didn't qualify, and I don't know whether Sebastian Beau actually even started the race. Comes from local to me in France. Sebastian
Is that right?
Beau? Yeah.
Your new neighbour and drinking companion.
He is, yeah.
Right, well, we'll await Plan B here. It should be the same grid. And I'm assuming, again, I look at the race direction team for this, it will still be 60 minutes.
Alpha Rouge chatting with Robert Rossi from Fanatec just to make sure that it wasn't anything from the hardware point of view, and just checking to see exactly what might have happened to Rouge. He was very frustrated. We saw him basically crawl off the start line and eventually get himself going. Neil Verhagen still doing some laps, getting as much practice in as possible, wherever possible. Most people are in the pit lane, but Verhagen still pedaling around. But I'm not sure we're going to get a full grid of 28 cars because we do have a couple of guys who have already left. Axel Jeffries being explained how the platform works by one of the HRT boys. As I said, Mercedes really putting a lot of effort into the second round. We had the bosses from Mercedes here from the first round of the championship to kind of assess exactly how it was running, and then they have employed the expertise of Williams Esports to really support all of their Mercedes drivers. And Axel Jeffries, I have to say, did a fantastic job. Really missed out on most of the practice session. Came in right at the end of the window. They're given a window from 9 until 3 to practice. And Jeffries came in at 10 to 3 and just about got his qualifying in.
No.
We do have a sim empty beside Jaxels, and that might be Dennis Lind. Now, Dennis Lind, we were talking about him earlier, starting at the back of the field. He did get up to 18th position, but he manages the Red Bull Esports program, actually. And
Dennis does?
Yeah, the Red Bull Esports program.
Okay.
When it moved away from G2.
Which was Niels Naujoks.
Which was Niels
Right,
Naujoks,
okay.
yeah. Kelvin van der Linde still aboard his rig, so that's good news. He'll get another shot at it. I don't know exactly what his issues were in that first practice, and good to see a massive crowd of people.
It's intriguing as well, isn't it, to see the way that the different drivers, the different teams take this seriously. Riccardo Patrese sitting watching, you see in the green shirt there, his son Lorenzo is in this.
Biggest fan. So far today, the man who's spent the most time in this hall has been Riccardo Patrese, watching everyone, what they're doing, and then feeding back to his son when he came to practice, taking this as seriously as he would have done in Formula One.
I was just thinking, again, you've got teams that totally embrace this. They understand the benefit, as you were saying earlier, of those 5 points that are on offer for a win in each class. And if they get a chance to score them, they will take that opportunity. Yeah. Others are still a bit more relaxed about it. Oh, we're out of the race, right, I'm off. Instead of thinking about, as we saw at Imola, if you survived the Imola race, you were going to score reasonably well. You had a chance.
I guess the thing is, you fight for those points when you're in the real world, don't you? You fight for every point possible. So why would you not try and fight here in the virtual world? As we heard from Neil Verhagen, there he is in the BMW, still pounding around, getting laps. It's part of his BMW Junior program has been sim racing, and he's getting every opportunity to do laps.
Now, the restarted race is going to be the time remaining. In other words, the amount left from the red flag, rather than going back to the hour mark.
And the reason for that is because we've got pre-qualifying coming up for the real world quite soon after.
And there'll be no pit stop window either. So the regulations have a pit window in the 1 hour race, but not in a restarted race. So there'll be no pit window, according to what we're hearing from the race direction team. So now everyone will be good to go shortly. And fingers crossed we can be back in business as soon as.
And the pit window does mix things up because there are so many aspects of pitting that you need to really maximise how you get the drivers in and out of the pit lane.
And we will now have a pit window.
Okay, good.
Because the original start has been voided.
Yeah.
And therefore, because we're going to have a fresh race, albeit over a slightly shorter distance, yes, there will now be a pit window, I understand.
So it's not a race suspended like we see in motorsport most of these days. It's really a red flag and a new start. Not even a restart, a new start.
A new start, but over the slightly shorter duration. And the grid order will remain as it was at the original start.
Good, so that puts Rougier and Van der Linde back on row 2, which should be very good. Thank you very much for joining us in the Fanatec Arena if you are here on site. And thank you very much for joining us on the streams around the world if you are watching at home. Second round of the Fanatec GT Pro Series, which also has, as part of it, the SRO Esports as a whole platform, sprint series from 3 different regions, and a full intercontinental GT World Challenge with the Endurance Series, which is kind of kicking off now. It was supposed to kick off a bit earlier, but various technical server issues meant that a couple of the earlier races got null and void, including the one, David, that you and I did. It's now a figment of our imagination because it never happened.
Exactly. There's no grid sheet for it, no result sheet because there was no result, no race declared. So that was the Asian Esports Championship that's being reset. And of course that also, as you rightly say, knocked on for the Endurance IGTC Championship as well. But for the next few weeks, Wednesdays are Esports Day, whether it's for Europe or Asia or the American Championship. Interesting as well, just watching some drivers resetting, others having another cheeky lap just to try and get themselves into the groove again, ready to go racing. We're awaiting a restart time, as in when we can restart, but it was an empty rig there, which is disappointing to see, but largely we're not too far away, I think.
Yeah, particularly that's Marvin Kirchhofer, who has the McLaren at his disposal, and the McLaren is a very good, fast car. You do need to take the start. That's an interesting rule. So those drivers that are not in their rigs right now, because this is a new start, if they don't take the start of the race, then any points and prize money that they do win throughout the season, null and void. So the fact that we are having a new start rather than a restart could mean that the drivers need to get back in those rigs at least to start the race, even if they then want to then bail out, which is a shame because, you know, as I said, the likes of Dennis Lind could be right up there. We've got Lind, Stein Schottorst, Marvin Kirchhofer and Lucas Legre on that particular shot missing. The other side of the hall on the right-hand side looks pretty much complete. I can see Sebastian Boe getting back into his rig.
Steve, how long before we can go?
And we've got Ferraris in there as well. Ferrari driver aboard, and as you say, others getting their laps in. There's a great shot of what the drivers see, which is so different to what we see when they're driving. So they've got data coming in through the Fanatec wheel, various lap times, gears, shifts, and all that. That's actually in the wheel, which is reflected also in the screen of the platform as well. But you can adjust your vision, and if you look at the different setups of the different drivers, some of them are quite far back, others are quite far forward. So if you're far forward, you then don't see your data system as well, and therefore you rely more on what's in the steering wheel.
Interesting as well to see who wears what. You know, some arrive with gloves, some arrive with a proper racing boot, some arrive with, you know, just as though they've come off the beach almost. I remember talking to Ben Barnicoat about this a couple of years ago, and he was saying one of the things that he had was some blue sunglasses because the glare coming off the screen, certainly when he was doing sim racing during lockdown at home, that was one issue particularly. But, you know, gloves, racing boots, team gear, but anti-glare specs is the key to it.
There are now bespoke sim gloves, bespoke sim socks, because so many sim racers actually like to drive barefoot.
Okay.
The only reason why a racing driver actually wears boots is because it's flame-proof to protect them. So they're so thin. So if you want to actually feel exactly what the throttle and the brake are doing, you would actually choose to be barefoot. You can do that at home because you're not at risk, in theory, of the computer going up in flames. But I'm sure that's probably happened in time, overheating for sure. So many, if we had pro drivers in here, we'd see a lot more sock action and a lot less trainer action.
Well, for now, everybody is booted at least. There's Nicky Team. who was impressive to take second place in Pro at Imola. And others are on their phones. Ezequiel Perez Companc, I think, is just saying, I'm going to be late for dinner.
Well, and a lot of this actually is data coming through from various people helping them out. So there will be setups being brought in. They might have taken photos of their setups from home or being sent through setups, and then they need to put that and input that into the platform of this particular game. You can see quite a lot of heat that's gone through that left front tyre, which is a bit of a characteristic of going around this circuit. Axel Jeffries here practicing hard. Green is good. He's got green on his right front and the rear tyres. That means they're in the operating window. The left front, less so, and there is another shot of some tyres that are a little bit overheated, perhaps. And then the little stripe on the inside of the tyres is the brakes, and obviously they start quite cold, so they start blue, and as they're used more and more, they get back into their operating window. So there we go. Now we've reset. We've got good tyres. They're in a good window, but the brakes, the blue bits, are absolutely cold. When he first steps on the pedal, then those will change to a colour. Quite cool, really, because you don't get a chance in a real car to see if your brakes are in their operating window or not. It's down to feel. In the game, you actually get to see it, and you get to see it with the tyres as well.
I understand that somebody external connected themselves to our power supply, and that's why we lost power. It's also why there is an overloaded and now dead PC that has not survived the experience. Now, because there was insufficient of the original race done to make it a two-parter, we will still go back to that original grid and the original 60-minute duration. So fingers crossed things can be underway swiftly as you look at Raffaele Marciello's artwork on his arms.
Who knew?
Because he's got, I didn't. I knew about the coloured hair, but I didn't know about all the artwork. Of course, they've got pre-qualifying to do at the end of the night, so the drivers are eager to get on with this because they've got other things to occupy them. Dennis Lynn sat there over the shoulder of Raffaele.
Oh, good, though. So he's back in.
Yeah.
He must then be in a different rig to where my Marcello's down the front row. So
And there's Dennis Lind next to him.
oh, he's on it twice. Brilliant. Good, thank you. Great to see Dennis Lind back in a rig. Then I was looking at him on one side of the building, and he's not in that side. He's on the other side. So, in which case,
potentially that was one because JP Motorsport had two entries, didn't they? So maybe that was the rig for the withdrawn Patrick Kroprinski. Right, we never really got a chance to ponder a winner out of all of this. On the evidence of a bit of a lap, Tommaso Mosca looked very good because he made an absolute peach of a start. But, as ever, getting through those first couple of corners was going to be key. And if we've got a Rougier and a Van der Linde back on the grid for this race, then that does start to give you more imponderables for a winner.
because of course, by not having those guys on row 2, the row 3 couldn't squeeze up. That's not allowed. The game would actually gives you a box that you have to stay in before the green flag flies. So had they pushed up to the front row, then the game would have decided that they started out of position and therefore would have disqualified them. So they couldn't push up. So there was a nice healthy gap between our front row and then row 3, which allowed Mosca and Alex Acker to have quite a clean run of things. And Acker, had no threat from behind whatsoever, so he didn't need to push. There was a little bit more congestion, let's say, around the 10, 12, and which had Marcello, Verhagen, Axel Jeffries around there. So they were all trying to push and reset themselves. So we do have free practice going on whilst they sort out the computer that has been shunted. And so we get a chance to have a look at all these liveries that are recreated especially for this, because of course the Assetto Competizione platform has been updated for last season, but we haven't quite yet got the update for 2022. So all of these artworks and the changing artworks of a race car as well has been updated by these guys manually across the last couple of days, and they all look absolutely splendid. Amazing work by the artists to get those liveries from the real world into the virtual world. And let's not forget that ACC has a huge amount of offering now, both the circuits from the European SRO Championship, but now also the British Championship and the Intercontinental GT World Challenge as well, so the likes of Bathurst and Kyalami, and there is also plans for another championship to be represented come, well, not far away then. I think it was supposed to be June, so it should be pretty short when we see another cluster of tracks which have been laser scanned to the inch of their lives, so that they are the most realistic tracks that you can drive in the world. There are some platforms that laser scan, but not to this level.
And also the engine noise is absolutely fantastic as well, isn't it? I mean, you close your eyes, listen to the noise of the Mercedes or the Lamborghini here in this free practice period, and you could just be stood trackside. So it's the noise as much as anything else that gets it for me. Right, Ezequiel Perez Compact you're looking at, who was second in silver at Imola, and I understand we're not too far off getting things back underway.
Nicky Tim with a very successful YouTube channel over the last couple of years and Twitch channel, but since having a baby, I'm not sure he's had so much time for the online world, and so we don't quite see so much of Nicky Tim, but he certainly loves his sim racing and is a very, very strong peddler. Second position last time out, as we take a look at Dennis Lin's JP Motorsport black and gold livery. That is a stunning piece of kit.
It is, yes.
Look forward to seeing him carve through the pack.
So we are slightly overdue getting things back underway, but everyone working as hard and as quickly as they can to get everybody back online. Tyler Cook making his debut in the championship for Leipzig Motorsport, so interesting to see how he will get on in this, because it's a new circuit in the real world as well as in the sim world.
Yeah, Brendan Lee doing very well last time out in that car. The reason why Brendan can't do this round is because he's also in the Super Trofeo, and that clashes with the sim race. So he didn't have the ability to actually participate this evening, but was helping Tyler Cook a lot out throughout the day with setup and advice. So interesting to see how Tyler gets on. Where did Tyler qualify? It was down the back end, wasn't it? Down in 23rd position, 2.7 seconds off the pace, but ahead of the likes of Bo and Kirchhoffer, Shotos Kayamir and Dennis Lin didn't get lap times in.
Although it didn't seem to phase Dennis much, did it? I mean, if you look at what he was doing in this free practice element, 10th fastest, so he's got the pace to run there or thereabouts near the front of the grid.
Another thing to point out is the BOP that we run in this particular championship is totally bespoke to this. So there are various drivers employed to create a BOP. It's not a reflection of the real world, and it's not even a reflection of the SRO Esports Championship with the pro race driver, the pro sim drivers in. These guys have a specific BOP to try and balance the cars as much as possible. An incredibly different task, difficult task I should say, with all the different models of car. But there is a team at SimGrid working tirelessly to make sure that all the different marks of car are in the hands of one driver exactly the same in terms of lap time. They might be better down the straights, they might be some others better through the corners, but the rumour has it that McLaren is a very strong competitor here. The BMW was very strong last time out, but of course we only have one BMW in Neil Verhagen. And the reason why we only have one BMW is because Rover Racing in the Real World Championship have entered 2 pro cars. If they had entered a pro and a silver car, then they would be required by the regulation to enter 2 cars into this. But because they have 2 pro cars, they only need 1 represented car. And that's why we have Neil Verhagen and the junior team representing, although Nicky Katzberg's a pretty good peddler. He's got a fantastic sim at home. Yes. He would be pretty good in this as well.
Neil Verhagen, just going back to Imola, was just mighty, wasn't he? Right, I think we are into the last 3 minutes then before we get things underway. Original grid, we'll try and identify any gaps that might be there, but it almost looks like a fuller grid than we had last time around. So we have 3 minutes then before things are underway. Thank you for your patience, whether you're watching on the stream, whether you're in the Fanatec arena, but the good news is that we are closer to blast off than we were a few minutes ago. So almost ready for a second go at this. There's something about Paul Ricard in this race and red flags, isn't there? But anyway, fingers crossed we're going to get through this without further drama. The stewards are ready, the drivers are ready, the teams with their guidance, whether it's on the Discord channel or through other means, are ready as well. And Tommaso Mosca will try to convert that pole position back into a race lead, but I can see Arthur Rougier, Calvin van der Linde are on the grid this time around, so that is good news. Yep,
all of the drivers that are in the rigs, all the cars will appear on that grid. Once they have logged into their car, and they've got 2 minutes to still do so. So you can see Nicholas Nielsen there still working on the setup he's in the setup screen there, changing his features, and he can still do that up until we go into a green flag situation. So he's got a minute and a half, but he's already logged in, just needs to press enter, and he's in that car. Once he goes in that car, we will then see on the right-hand side that car drop down onto the floor. Those that haven't will obviously stay on the grid, and as we pull away, we will then lose the ones that don't have those cars that are not occupied. So for the moment, we don't know exactly how many cars we're going to get going, but it does look pretty good. The Audi does look like it might still be up on its jacks, but we do know that Kelvin van der Linde is in his rig, so he's good to go.
Yeah, I think the Audi there is Alex Arca's car that's still on its jacks, actually. 1 minute to the start, 1 minute to go. So Tommaso Mosca lining up alongside Alex Arca. The second row, the blue Lamborghini of Arthur Rougier, and Kelvin van der Linde is alongside. Yuki Nomoto looks like it's still up on the jacks. That green Lamborghini out of the VS Racing Vincenzo Sospiri team, and Nicholas Nielsen's Ferrari next up. Then there is Luca Giotto and Yusuf Bohaka, both for Audi. Another one up on its jacks by the look of things is Janis Fitja in the blue and white number 4 Mercedes. So a few leaving it late, I think, here to log in and drop down onto the circuit. But gradually they now do so. Bump, 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 up the grid. Oh, up on the jacks goes Luca Giotto. So pretty much everybody getting themselves set, and 20 seconds before we have the cars released onto this formation lap. Last man on that grid, remember, is Dennis Lind, who made decent progress first time around. 28 we are looking for. So are we going to get all 28 on the grid this time around? It's still going to be the 1 hour, and we are at just after 6 o'clock local time for the time of day for which the race is set. Right then. Clock has just about hit 0, so we should be able to get this formation lap now underway.
Yeah, cars at the head of the field are moving already. You can see on the left-hand side, and the rest of them now start pulling away. This will give us a chance to see if we don't have anybody, any cars missing. I think, as expected, Lucas Legere is not there. Neither is Marvin Kirchhofer. Those are the 2 that are missing. But for the rest, I think we're okay. There might be 1 or 2 at the very back of the field. We do know that Dennis Lind is aboard. Stein Schotters probably isn't. He's just off the list. Trying to remember his brother's name, who is incredibly good in the sim world. It's escaped me. Schotters' family, a very, very well-known Dutch real-world
There was Peter
driving.
Schlockhorst.
Father.
I thought he was the other brother.
Is he the other brother?
Yes.
No.
Father will come back to me.
I can't remember the.
Yes, but
very,
you're right.
very
It is a prolific Dutch family.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen what he's been up to recently, but one of the McLaren Fastest Gamer drivers back in the day, a few years ago now, showing my age.
So then, we have 60 minutes. We are going to have the pit stop put back into this. So, as you were, and 25, Lucas Legere, yes, 38, Marvin Kirchhofer, did not, as you were saying, drop onto the grid. So if they do start, they will start from the pit lane, if they start. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we don't have drivers in either of those rigs. How that plays out with their regulations is another one, because the regulations do say you have to start the race. They started the original race. They haven't started this race. So I'm not quite sure how that works out. But let's not focus on that for the moment. Let's focus on our 1 hour encounter around Ricard. We've somehow gone back in time, back to 6:02 to start the race. And we should therefore, it's a bit early to have a nice sunset, isn't it? It's one of the things that's so well simulated in ACC is sunrises and sunsets. They are absolutely stunning. Rarely see a sunrise apart from Bathurst, which starts in before sunrise, doesn't it?
Yes.
For 12 hours.
What about beer? Thinking of Spa, can we simulate beer for part of the ambiance of the Spa event? So into Senior, which is where in the real world we had a fairly sizable Aston Martin accident earlier on in the day, out of the right-hander. Of course, track limit's always an issue in the real-world element of GT racing at Paul Ricard, but at this part of the circuit, still very, very fast indeed. And then you start to turn right all the way down through Beausset, sort of loop back on yourself towards Bendor, then the Courbe du Village, Virage de la Tour, and up to the Virage du Pont at the end of the lap. So this is the Virage de Beausset. Get it wrong there, run out wide. You compromise the whole of the next sequence, don't you?
Absolutely, and it sits on the same kind of layout that it was built in the 1970, opened in 1970, the same layout, the same kind of ribbon of tarmac they drive on. Obviously the exterior of the track very, very different with all the high speed, high friction runoff areas that were put in by Bernie Ecclestone when he owned the circuit. Doesn't own the circuit any longer. No. And that's why we've seen so much development around the circuit. It's now got a fantastic kart track just on the outside of the circuit. You can go quad biking, you can go jet boarding as we leave the paddock. There's a little jet board area and remote control boats as well.
Of course, this is, if you like, a circuit that came back, because for many, many years under Bernie Ecclestone's ownership it was only a test track, but now it's a very busy race circuit once again, and it is about to echo to GT3 cars then, because our second take in the Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series Round 2 is about to get underway. Tommaso Mosca on pole position, Alex Arca alongside him on the front of the grid. The lights will go green in a moment to get things underway. Arthur Rougier is on his toes, third on the grid in the Lamborghini. Lights change, it is blast off. A better start this time is made by Alex Arca on the run down towards turn 1. Tommaso Mosca in the Mercedes will claim the inside line. That's got so much grunt in a straight line, and Tommaso Mosca leads them with Rougier clattering up the inside of Arca, who gets squeezed out over the curb. Then Rougier gets a tap in the tail for his pains from Yuki Nomoto, and that's going to lose 3, 4, 5 places. He slots back in behind Luca Giotto, so the bite a bit to an extent there as they drop down towards turn 3.
A few guys really sending it. The number 4 machine of Fitje just going down, getting a few positions, but then catching Rougier as well. Rougier's been really bullied on this first lap. Half of it wasn't his fault. A Porsche going sideways behind. I wonder if that was Matteo Cairoli from 14th position. We've got a couple of drive-through penalties on the left-hand side showing up. That would be for out of position at the start of the race. But I don't think we've had anyone actually bail out the race so far.
Don't speak too soon, because Cairoli is dropping like a stone after that contact that you identified, and there the Porsche does dive to one side of the circuit. So I think Cairoli with damage may be a retirement. We'll check, but as they head up the Mistral straight, they're side by side for the race lead on the outside line there. Alex Arca tries to find a way through. Raffaele Marciello going around the outside of Luca Giotto, and he goes the wrong side of the track markers there. He's not the only one, but Raffaele Marciello might have a case to answer out of all of that as they work their way now up through the double apex rise at Beausset for the first time. Tommaso Mosca leading, Alex Arca second, third Kelvin van der Linde, fourth Nicholas Nielsen. This battle packs for fifth, Nomoto, Marciello, and then Verhagen seventh. And remember that the Imola winner, Verhagen, is carrying an extra 30 kilos of weight.
Luca Giotto being sent down the inside there of Beausset. He made contact with Raffaele Marciello on the exit of the curve, and it spat the car inside. An unusual incident, but I think we're going to lose Giotto from the race because it was a heavy contact into the concrete wall on the inside. Somehow Rougier has survived lap 1, even though some serious contact. He will have damage to that car that will not feel as fast as it once was, but great to see that he's continuing, because he knows that points are still very much on offer where he is. He's 6th in class, 10th overall, that doesn't matter to him. 6th in class, just outside the points, and he only needs one car ahead of him to retire, and the points start coming. The prize money starts coming as well.
So at the end of the opening lap, it was Tommaso Mosca in the lead, but that margin half a second fluctuating down to 3/10 and back up again, depending on which part of the racetrack we look at. There is Verhagen in a big battle then with Arthur Rougier, who tries to get up the inside of the BMW, but that puts him on the outside now as they come onto the Mistral straight. And at the same time, while that's going on, Rougier is under attack from his teammate, because the quick South African Stuart White is there as well. Now this is where the aero-friendly Lamborghini has the advantage. Look, they just breeze past the BMW.
Yeah, BMW with 30 kilos of ballast as well, don't forget. It's a big car to push through the air too, and the Lamborghini's really streaming past. Verhagen's target today is really just to get some points. He knows he can't win this in dominating fashion that he did round 1, and he's sitting there just on the outskirts of the top 10, but the Audis and the Lamborghinis filing past, and now I think he's going to lose a position to the recovering Fitje as well, from dropping down to 12th position.
So Luca Giotto pitted at the end of the opening lap. Also Stein Schotthorst was in the pits. I think he did start the race, but he's in the pits at the end of the opening lap as we ride on board with Stuart White then, currently running in 10th place, sitting on the back of his teammate Arthur Rougier as they drop down towards the bottom of the lap, down towards the Zamboma, then Lecole, sequence of corners, and Verhagen falls back now behind Janis Vitius. So the BMW, with all of that weight now being monstered by the Mercedes of Ezequiel Perez Compact, this could be a rather long day at the office, couldn't it, for Neil Verhagen, because he just can't make progress right now.
Problem is, he's also being compromised and put offline, so he can't even carry the momentum into the next corner. He's really just being put on the outside line, the outside line, the outside line, and he's just inviting the next one to come through. If he could just get a bit of space to settle in, I think he's probably got a better pace than he's showing right now. I mean, lap time, 2 minutes versus a 55 at the front of the field.
Fastest lap done by Calvin van der Linde, currently running in 3rd place. So van der Linde, winner here last year, doing a good job. There is Raffaele Marciello, currently in 6th place, all over the back of Yuki Inamoto. Yuki Inamoto, who was the driver 3rd in the silver class at Imola. And again, looking strong here. Mosca, though, up front is just edging away a little bit from Alex Arca. That gap is up to 0.8 of a second now.
Great to see the Ferrari represented in 4th position. Nicholas Nielsen has always been strong in that Ferrari, but it's a lone Ferrari, so not a huge amount to do. I know that Ferrari Esports do support Nicholas and make sure, and in fact, he's got himself ahead on the timing screens at the very least, ahead of Kelvin van der Linde. So has that been a mistake from van der Linde? It must be.
Certainly gone through. So the Ferrari, which in real world GT3 racing here has always been strong around Paul Ricard, underlining that performance again. And Nicholas Nielsen is one of those drivers, whether it's in sim racing or in, of course, GT World Challenge real world, where he's been a champion, has just flown under the radar. He's very, very quick, but without a great deal of fanfare. Well, he's put one over on Calvin van der Linde, although van der Linde coming back at him as they head up towards the completion of the lap then. Heading up towards the Virage de la Tour, round the back of the paddock, up towards the Virage du Pont, which will end the lap. Tight corner, slow corner, back on the power, and then you see who's got good acceleration. The drive out of this last right, absolutely crucial for this long, fast pit straight.
Perez Compact receives a drive-through penalty from our real-world race stewards with contact on Axel Jeffries on lap 1. So a man who always picks up decent points. He has, well, it looks like he might have bailed actually. I'm not sure he went into the pits. He might have got into the pits and to take that drive-through penalty. He may have just escaped and left the game as well.
Yeah, the timing screen shows him being in the pit lane now. Dennis Lind, 15th. Dennis Lind about to be 14th as he comes up to absolutely breeze past Neil Verhagen and put himself on the back of his fellow countryman Nicky T. Aston Martin versus McLaren, 2 great British brands in current speak, but Danish drivers at the helm of them. And Dennis Lind tries to work out where he can slingshot up the inside of the Aston Martin. You've got all the grunt and go of the Aston versus the aero of the McLaren, and a big slide by Dennis Lind, giving that car a real workout.
14th position, last lap of a 58.0, so by getting through traffic is not as fast as they're managing at the front of the field with a bit more clear air. Alex Acker a 55.4 at 1 second back from Thomas Mosca, so not necessarily picking up too much the slipstream. And Marcello and Yamoto for 5th position now through Signet, running very, very wide, but the game calculates if you make an advantage. It's really cool system. Oh, contact!
Marciello on Nemoto. Yuki Nemoto gets fired sideways, and he's lost another place look there because Yusufa Pohaka has got up and passed him as well. So Raffaele Marciello, it was only a relatively gentle tap, but it was enough to unsettle that green Lamborghini, and he may well have a case to answer out of that.
Yeah, just to talk about, because track limit's so important here at Paul Ricard, if you do go off track in this virtual race, the game decides whether you have gained an advantage or not, gives you a warning and can give you a time penalty if you have gained too much of an advantage. I really like this system. It's a system that cannot work in the real world because of various variables, but does work very well in the virtual world. It doesn't just give you a penalty point as soon as you go off track. That's kind of unrealistic because sometimes you go off track because you're out of control, but it does calculate whether you gain an advantage. Great battle here for 11th spot.
So Joel Sturm in the Porsche to the inside line of Stuart White's Lamborghini, and he goes through them. The Allied Racing Porsche picks up a place on the inside. Joel Sturm doing a good job here because he started a fair way back on the grid. He's now got himself up into 11th spot. So good progress is being made by the GT4 graduate, the Allied Racing team, which is also becoming more and more proficient the more time it spends in whether it's GT3 or esports GT3 racing. But 22nd on the grid, Joel Sturm, and as I say, he's now up into 11th place. That is good going.
Great to see so many cars still running, actually. It's a bit of a war of attrition at Imola. Imola, a very tricky circuit anyway, but the fact that we've got runoff area here, I think, is helping that these guys stay on the track.
Neil Verhagen is being given a 10-second time penalty for gaining an advantage off the track. And there, more contact because getting involved in replay. We saw Stuart White bouncing off the Audi, and that was with Lorenzo Petresi, and they got a taste for contact, and ultimately it was Stuart White that came way off worse, wasn't it?
That's quite physical. Can't do that in the real world. There'd be a lot of damage to the car, but
can't do it twice, that's for sure. So Lorenzo Petresi making his presence felt. He's 9th. Stuart White actually survived all of that to be 11th, but with still 50 minutes of the race to go, it is Tommaso Mosca leading the way up front right now. A little bit more leaning going on. That's another replay of number 159. The McLaren trying to storm its way up on the inside. So Nikolai Kjærgaard it is for Garage 59, getting his elbows out. So there's Stuart White back ahead of Joel Sturm. So Stuart White retaking his 11th place. Despite all that contact, that Lamborghini is standing up to the abuse pretty well.
And moreover, it's not just 11th overall, it is now a point scoring position in the Silver Cup. Silver Cup obviously represented from the real world, so these cars with the silver numbers are entered into the Silver Cup in the real world, which means they transfer that Silver Cup status into the virtual world, but it doesn't kind of reflect so much because we've even got a single driver here, and usually it's the best sim driver of those three. It might be the silver driver in the real world, but the fastest driver in the virtual. I think over the years it would be great to see a sim driver known for his sim racing come into the virtual world like this and perform at such a high level as part perhaps of a silver team. But it does mean that that battle that we were looking at is for 1 point in the Silver Cup. We've got our pro drivers, Nielsen leading that from Van der Linde, Marcello, Puhaka, and then Rouget does have points in 8th despite that really difficult first lap.
Nearest I can offer you for that silver sim versus real world element is James Baldwin, who did real world racing, went sim racing, came out of it to win a British GT race, but then his driver grading went up and the budget didn't, and so he struggled to go back into real world racing, but he's very much a talent whether it's in the virtual or the real world. Now, how about this? Nicholas Nielsen 3rd, Kelvin van der Linde 4th, they are together. All of this is enabling the race leaders to get away, but Tommaso Mosca, who is looking so strong up front, still clear of Alex Arca. Arca half a second down, has now done the fastest lap. I reckon we could still be on for a battle for the race lead because look, just turning out of the Virage du Pont there, they are very close indeed for the race lead now.
Surprised to see Kelvin van der Linde hasn't yet got past Nicholas Nielsen, certainly setting the timing screens alight the first couple of laps, but with a mistake that we didn't see on screen, allowing him to drop behind Nielsen. Of course, this might be for 3rd overall. There was a little half a look there, but this is also for the lead in Pro. So there's actually €6,000 at stake and 5 real-world championship points for Team WRT and Kelvin van der Linde if he can clear that Ferrari.
You mentioned a while ago Ezequiel Perez Compact being given a drive-through. I think he's bailed anyway, but just for record, he would also have been given a 10-second time penalty for colliding with Matteo Cairoli that put Cairoli out at the very start of the race. Now, Arca is closing on Mosca for the race lead. It was half a second. It's now down to 4/10. He's done the fastest lap of the race. This is game on. Nicholas Nielsen fending off Kelvin van der Linde in the background. Raffaele Marciello is ahead of Juuso Puhaka now. So Marciello is also creeping back into the mix, isn't he? It wasn't necessarily a stellar qualifying to be 10th, but I know he had his elbows out against Nomoto as well early on. Little by little, though, Raffaele Marciello is coming back into the picture.
There's another place gained by Rouget round the outside of Nomoto on the Mistral straight, and a pretty easy pass. So Rouget doesn't necessarily need that for his championship, but it's a good thing to have anyway because he can now really draw himself onto the tail. And there is a great move from van der Linde down the inside and up to 3rd.
Retakes the place then, so Audi goes back ahead of Ferrari, and look who is with them.
Wow.
Raffaele Marciello is there, so he started 10th, he's running 5th, subject to any penalties that may come after that incident with Nomoto. But Marciello is back at the races, and a podium could be on because he's still got 46 minutes to go. There's a long way to go as there, look, up the inside line dives the number 4 Mercedes. That is Janis Fittja trying to gain ground at the expense of number 11 Audi, and he has done so ahead of Lorenzo Petresi, but only just.
Petresi comes back at him at the Virage du Pont down the inside. This squabbling is going to allow White and Sturm and a few others to join the party as well. As I say, this is on the outs. This is for very much points in the Silver Cup too, and the pace compromised out of Virage de Pont. So here comes the Porsche of Sturm around the outside. There's contact between the two of them.
Joel Sturm gets fired off across the dirt on the inside of turn 1. Now, whether he hit anything solid, we didn't see. The car is still in the race, but it's dropping place after place. He's on the back of Nicky Team now, so Joel Sturm, who was running 11th at one stage, is now down to 13th, but he's still circulating, which is good to see. Number 19, Arthur Rougier then, ahead of Yuki Nomoto now, but those two Lamborghinis, Emil Frey Racing versus VS Racing, very, very evenly matched.
And sometimes when you have contact like that, where you don't really make big, heavy contact, you just get spun out. Actually doesn't really affect the car too much. It does overheat the tyres, and he won't have the performance from the tyres for a next lap or so. But look at this, 3 wide down the straight.
Awesome stuff. And Marciello gets one. Nicholas Nielsen's back ahead of Van der Linde anyway, and Marciello clears both of them.
Wow.
So Nicholas Nielsen stays 4th, 1 up and 2 back for Van der Linde in the space of a lap. So Raffaele Marciello reminding people that he's here and he means business.
The Mercedes really coming on form after a couple of laps of getting itself warm. They've set these cars up to last a full race distance. Remember, a full 1 hour. So sometimes the cars can be a bit lazy at the start of the race, and they come on strong in the middle part. And then if you haven't got your setup correctly, they then disappear at the end. So there was also that to look at and look forward to, perhaps. But Mercedes will be very happy. Mercedes AMG. Jan Seifert now leading that esports team and bringing in Williams Esports to come and help Mercedes. And look at what they've done. They've got a 1st and a 3rd on the road right now with the Codes ASP team. Thomas Mosca's car usually occupied by Danny Ucudella, who you would usually say, yeah, absolutely, you're the man to do it. But Tomasco Mosca showing that he's actually even stronger.
Doing a very, very good job now. Looking at Nicholas Nielsen. So 4th he is. Now for the race lead, they are together. Mosca is looking strong, yes, but Arca is looking good also, isn't he? So that Attempto Audi absolutely stuck to the back of the Mercedes. And as they turn their way towards the Mistral Straight, a slightly tighter line is taken by Alex Arca, whose father, Arkin Arca, is the man behind Attempto Racing, still races himself on occasions. But Alex then now tries to chip away at that deficit. 3/10 to that last timing point. And it is the Audi that has done the fastest lap of this race, as we are just having nudged over the 1/4 distance mark up towards Senior at the top of the Mistral Straight. Now what's going on behind them? There is Marciello 3rd, 4th is Nielsen, 5th is Van der Linde, but look at Juuso Pohaka. Pohaka has got his nose in front then. The 2nd Attempto Audi is on the outside line of the thin. Juuso Pohaka tries to get himself ahead of the South African. Keeps sitting on the outside line, runs wide, goes the wrong side of the markers, skips back onto the circuit, but falls behind Van der Linde again.
Certainly get a warning for that from the in-game marshals, but doesn't look as though he's got any kind of penalty. That would come up almost instantly. So a good attempt. It was never going to happen. He should have just slotted in, and he had the opportunity there of being passed by Rougier as well.
Indeed, but I suppose part of the problem is that if you do try and get back in, you have to slow your pace, then you lose momentum, you could lose more places. As now Van der Linde, really inspired by all of this, tries to come back at Nicholas Nielsen for 5th place. There's another time penalty being given to Stein Scotthorst, but I think he's out of the race anyway. As up towards the timing line then now comes this battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th places. Marciello goes through now. Nielsen is just ahead of Van der Linde for 4th, but only just. Van der Linde back on the inside line, breaks as late as he dares, goes through. Nielsen up the curb, retakes it. Fantastic racing this.
Beautiful stuff.
Juuso Pohaka's view, gets a face full of Van der Linde, goes to the outside line. This is great news for Nicholas Nielsen, because now those Audis are going to trip over themselves again. It gives him a free ride.
And Marciello's he's off up the distance. A bit of contact there, I think, from Rougier into the back of the Audi. That's opened the door for Rougier to come through. Pohaka will get himself settled back down again. And especially on the long Mistral Straight, that Lamborghini does have very, very strong top speed. And it could all change again when we get to Senior once more.
Well, the danger now is Yuki Nomoto. That Lamborghini looking good. Arthur Rougier then having just put himself into the top 6. But look at Van der Linde in a straight line, coming back at Nielsen. Look at the leaders. Mosca is under huge pressure. I know there are good battles elsewhere, but take nothing away from Tommaso Mosca. He is soaking up this pressure like a sponge. And Alex Arca right there behind him tightens the line, coming through Beausset. Mosca's going to run out wide, and he's sideways up the curve as well. This is Arca's chance. Goes one way, goes the other. Everywhere he goes, the Mercedes has already closed the door, locked the door, bolted the door. He can't find a way through.
Got to be so careful in those situations not to run into the back of the guy in front, because the defence is so strong that you might be trying to send it up the inside and suddenly the door is shut, but you've got no way to brake any later, and then the inevitable contact happens, and sometimes race control takes a dim view of that, even if you really couldn't do anything to avoid the contact. Little bit of contact there between Nicholas Nielsen and Van der Linde, who's shoving the Ferrari down the start finishing straight, trying desperately to find that inside line that he claimed last lap, but then ran too wide to claim the position. We go 3 wide into turn 1.
And there's contact. Van der Linde hits Nielsen. Nielsen hits Rougier. Oh dear, what was great racing has ended up with damage. Van der Linde survives it. Nomoto skips up the order as well, but there are going to be some grumpy people after that as we head back towards the race leaders. Alex Arca shadowing the every move of Mosca.
I think Nicholas Nielsen has bailed out. That is such a shame because it was such a good race. Rougier has recovered. He knows that there's still points available, and Rougier has to drop behind Nicky Team. He probably is a Nicholas Team, but he has to drop behind Nicky Team to lose points in the pro category, so it's worth carrying on even if you've got a little bit of damage.
I think I've just seen Nicholas Nielsen leave the arena, so big frustration after what was a really impressive drive early on. But out of all of this, Marciello third. Now, look at Yuki Nomoto. He's fourth, and not for long he's not, because Van der Linde gets into him as well, and around goes the Lamborghini. Now, what is all this about? Van der Linde has had 2 sizable incidents within this lap.
Well, that will be a slam dunk, won't it? On a start finish straight, there should never be contact like that. And somehow, I think the Lamborghini avoided the wall. It was quite a spectacular spin. Hopefully, he doesn't bail out, because he's very much still in a points-paying position, third in the Silver Cup, and actually doesn't really need to get involved in that scrap, because third in Silver Cup, he had a decent 3.6 second advantage over his nearest rival. Now, further back, Nicky Team and Lorenzo Patrese go side by side for different classes, and Team clears that quite easily.
But that was very unlike Kelvin van der Linde, who last year here, for example, was just metronomic. He was so dominant, but there, 2 rather fractious scraps. Now, what about Marciello's pace relative to the rest? He's not quite lapping on the pace of the top 2, even though they are squabbling. Their last lap was a 55 in both cases, his was a 56. But surely they're going to hold each other up, because Arca now is getting ever more committed. We've also got this pit window to factor in as well, haven't we?
Yes, and then I know that the strategists of ACC say there isn't such thing as an overcut or an undercut in this game, but if Acker is released and has 1 lap of clear air that he can go faster than Mosca, if Mosca pits first, then there is the opportunity to pass in the pits and therefore undercut or overcut. So that, I think, is what Alex Acker will be looking at if he feels as though he has better pace. He could also dive into the pits earlier, and as long as he's got clear track, also try and pedal slightly faster. There's also the variables of how you get into the pits, how you get your crew to work, even though they don't have to do any work, how you can maximise the particular pit stop. Even if there's nothing to do to the car, you can still win 2 or 3 seconds. And remember last year we saw Arthur Rougier lose a race because he didn't get that part of this completely sorted. And the expertise of those real gamers knew how to do it faster, whereas Rougier missed out a little bit on that kind of experience.
Kelvin van der Linde being physical to make sure that Juuso Pohaka can't find a way past him as they turn their way now into Beausset. So van der Linde running 4th on the road, Pohaka 5th, Rougier 6th, Nomoto 7th, Fitje 8th, White 9th, Team 10th. And Kelvin van der Linde feeling the pressure a little bit here, because this is a good effort by Juuso Pohaka. Came out of Super Trofeo racing in Asia into World Challenge a couple of seasons ago, and Juuso Pohaka doesn't have the biggest of budget, but he's a very talented driver, and van der Linde is understanding that right now, because he's going to try and keep him at bay as they head to the line.
And I hope teams also understand that if they bring in a guy that perhaps doesn't have the biggest budget in the world but can contribute put up to 25 championship points on his own for the team to either win or lose a championship. That's valuable. That's worth supporting some of these drivers that don't have the biggest budgets. And going back to James Baldwin, I think he has himself an opportunity in the next couple of months to do a real world race again, and maybe it is in a GT3 car, maybe it is one of these races that involves a sim racing element, which is we are the only championship in the world where real world championship points can be scored virtually, and bringing in Baldwin to get an extra couple of points, why not?
Why not indeed. Dennis Lind has just pitted. I was about to say, disappointed that he's not made progress, only 17th, but Dennis Lind has pitted. It's a bit early that for it to be the mandatory stop, which is a bit of a concern, sadly.
Yeah, not that much early, 45 seconds early, but I think maybe his day is done, especially knowing that we do have the sessions, the pre-qualifying session happening quite soon after this. I know a lot of the drivers want to get into that headspace and make sure they're not compromised by what they've done in the virtual world. Some of them even complaining about dehydration because of their 1 hour sim race, and they didn't drink enough water, so they lost concentration, and that's why they made a mistake in the real world. One of the new excuses in the book of driver excuses to be added thanks to the Esports Pro Series.
Yes, the other one I like was the internet disconnect, so you get spat out of a race. Now, up the inside spits Jussi Pahakka. Kelvin van der Linde gives him just about enough racing room, but of course that's the outside line for the next corner as they come through the Courbe du Village up towards the Virage de la Tour towards the end of the lap, and Pahakka again tries to make a move on the inside line, but the curb is his only real option. Stands on the brakes down to first gear here for the Virage du Pont, back onto the power, and now up towards the timing line. On that timing graphic, by the way, you'll see one, which is the number of regulation pit stops yet to be made. In other words, because none of them have gone green, nobody has yet served that regulation pit stop.
You'll also see the plus 10 seconds for Neil Verhagen. I'm not sure we covered that one, but he did make contact with another driver, so he's got a 10-second penalty. That will be taken in that pit stop, so he'll sit there for 10 seconds and it will then clear. And
5 seconds are being added to Janus Fitcher because he made contact with Neil Verhagen. I think we saw that. So Verhagen gains and loses in a sense. Right, the pit window is open. It's only open for 10 minutes, so now you've got to be clever as to when you come in.
And this is where the likes of Williams Esports, the likes of Neil Snaujoks that we met at the start of the show will be looking at the tracker, looking at where all the cars are, knowing how long it will take to go through pit lane, and then planning the right time to make that pit stop so that you are not compromised by slower traffic. Nicky Thiem's already done that. So is Nicolas Bart from 15th position. So we've got two early visitors. I'm not sure whether they have the kind of support that perhaps the Mercedes or the BMW drivers have. And again, side by side for fourth.
But right now, Pahakka, having taken that place, is hanging on to it. Kelvin van der Linde doesn't instantly have an answer. Behind them is Arthur Rougier after a spin, after contact early on in the race. He's coming back into the mix.
I feel like we're still waiting for a penalty for Kelvin van der Linde.
I think you're right, but I suspect there's quite a lot to look through from earlier on in the race.
Yeah, so race control live in a world about 15 minutes behind the rest of us, doesn't it? When it comes to a race, suddenly you see penalties coming in that refer to something that happened half an hour ago.
15 minutes behind, penalties, going to the bar, fashion, it's all there in race direction. So, 32 minutes and change on the clock. Kelvin van der Linde, number 32 Audi on the back of Jussi Pahakka. Up towards the timing line they come. Pahakka bails for the pit lane then. So, he comes in, and that's the first of our leading sextet in order to serve the mandatory pit stop. It'll be interesting now to see whether that has been a good or a bad decision coming in relatively early.
Kelvin van der Linde really wants the penalty to be awarded to him pre his pit stop because,
yes.
He's obviously not wanting a penalty at all, but I think he probably knows that it's coming because it's post pit stop that it'll be applied to the end of the race, which is a bit more of a clumsy thing to then try to recover. Well, you can't ever recover it. Of course, we're not going to have a safety car period that's going to completely destroy it. That's not something that we have in our sim racing world because we don't need it. We don't need to protect the drivers or marshals from safety in the virtual world. And that's why sim races tend not to have safety cars, although more and more people are trying to add them to add a little bit of spice.
Can I just offer you the fact that Arthur Rougier, now 5th, is lapping quicker than anybody else ahead of him. So even though that Lamborghini has been in a bit of strife in this race, he has certainly not given up, and he is pressing on. The lap times are good. Tommaso Mosca all of a sudden has shaken off Alex Arca as well, because from being nose to tail, the margin is 1.3 seconds now. There is Rougier, look, who's absolutely gobbled up the real estate against Kelvin van der Linde. He's up the inside, he forces the Audi wide over the curb. There's contact. Van der Linde is the one that comes off first and claps the back of Rougier and turns them both around. 3 strikes that for van der Linde. How many more can he rack up?
Trying to go around the outside at Senior never really works, and it was always inevitable that the car would bobble a little bit under the lack of traction and come back. Drive-through penalty for Axel Jeffries from 10th position. That's a bit of a shame, although running outside the points at the moment. Mosca continues in the lead, but Alex Acca into the pits from 2nd position. So they do split the strategy between the front two, and let's see how that plays out when Mosca comes into the pits in a lap or two's time. He wants to cover it as soon as possible, and this lap on his own is crucial.
So that means the race order is Tommaso Mosca ahead with half the race still to go, still 30 minutes on the clock, ahead of Raffaele Marciello. Yuki Nomoto will go 3rd, Janis Fittier 4th. Van der Linde is in, Rougier is in, and Stuart White is in as well. But Kelvin van der Linde, I suspect that car not exactly 100% anymore. So the Audi serving its pit stop. Lorenzo Petresi therefore benefits. And what we need to see is where Arca rejoins relative to everybody else, because Juuso Pahaka, for example, was the first one to make a pit stop. Away goes Arca. He stays ahead of Pahaka. He's got to get back up to momentum. He should be well clear given track position from earlier on, and he's going to be something like 2.7 seconds up the road from the Finn, his teammate.
Good news is that for Alex's car, it looks absolutely spotless. He can return that back to the showroom after the race. So many of the cars with significant scratches and damage, which is simulated in the car. We don't necessarily see bits of bodywork falling off the car, but the drivers will feel it, and I think that's what makes the performance of Arthur Rougier so impressive so far, is that despite multiple contacts in lap 1, we've seen him have contact throughout the half an hour so far, he's still able to have race-leading pace.
Yeah. Penalty coming for Lorenzo Petresi now for contact with Stuart White. We saw that, didn't we, down at the bottom of the circuit. So Lorenzo Petresi currently running 5th. He's been given a 10-second time penalty. He's yet to serve his stop, so he can do that all at the same time. Right, Tommaso Mosca, the leader, is in. So just the wrong side of the halfway point. Into the pit road comes the race leader. Where will he rejoin relative to Arca? This is the next question.
Looked pretty good on attacking the pits in. Of course, it's quite a slow pit in because you've gone around the Virage du Pont, so you're not having to brake from too high a speed. A long pit lane, rumbles down that on the pit lane speed limiter. Obviously, if you're off the pit lane speed limiter, then you can lose a bit of time there. Then you have to make sure the car stops exactly in the box. If you go a bit too forward or a bit too back, that will eat up time as well. Make sure all the buttons are set correctly so that the pit stop happens fast. He's done that. He now leaves pit lane. Wait until you get to the line. Now you can release the pit lane speed limiter as quickly as possible. Where is the Audi of Alex Acca? That is the question.
There it is. So the margin looks like it's grown, if anything. Marciello is going to be the on-the-road race leader, but of the stoppers, Mosca 7.3 seconds ahead of Arca.
Amazing. It should come down once he gets up to speed, but still a big gap between the two. As we said, that experience of knowing the game that Williams Esports have brought to Mercedes for this event, whereas Alex Acca, with his teammates around him, helping him out over the last couple of hours in his practice session, but maybe doesn't know all of those little tiny secrets about getting in and out the pits as quickly as possible. And certainly a big advantage. Simply, there doesn't seem to be any traffic involvement either for Alex Acca. Now here's a replay of Kelvin van der Linde. What's he up to now?
Was this the moment with Rougier, or was this from later in the race?
I mean, Rougier comes from miles back.
Absolutely. Gets right onto his tail, dives up the inside. Van der Linde tries to stand his ground. Rougier briefly ahead. There is contact. That unsettles Van der Linde, who I think, in fairness, was out of control when he touched the Lamborghini, but touch it he did.
One of the things my father always said is if you've lost the corner, you've lost the corner. Don't try, and, especially at a place like that, trying to go all the way around the outside. Certainly if there was grass on the outside, I think Van der Linde would have thought differently about it. One of those classic things about track limits, and when we go to Spa, of course, many more track limits they're now built into the newly renovated Spa-Francorchamps circuit with lots more grass, and therefore you think twice about trying to run all the way around the outside of someone because you can't rescue it if it goes wrong. And unfortunately, Kelvin trying to go around the outside, contact made, not the first contact, because of course he had contact with a Lamborghini on the straight as well. And they are now looking at it as Marcello exits the pits.
Loses the lead, back to Mosca, but can he jump the Audis? Because Arca had lost so much time, I reckon that's going to put Raffaele up into second place. So from 10th on the grid to second position, this illustrates why it's worth staying out and working, because you never know what's going to happen around you. So now Marcello is second. He is 3.8 seconds behind Tommaso Mosca. He's still got a real chance of being able to win this.
Unbelievable, the way he's slotted into that gap there. You've got to say the Mercedes-AMG Esports team, Williams Esports and Acodis ASP, we saw them working so hard in practice this morning down at the front of our Fanatec arena, talking to the guys from Williams Esports, making sure they absolutely maximise everything they possibly can, and it's worked out for them. Mercedes won 2 from that team, different categories, so maximum points in the silver, maximum points in the pro category as well, and at the moment not really under pressure at all.
Drive-through penalty, Kelvin van der Linde, for his incidents with Nielsen and also Rougier. So it's one drive-through rather than 2 separate time penalties, if you're with me, but it's a drive-through that's being offered up to van der Linde. 6th he runs at the moment, but he's being given the drive-through, as you see on the timing tower, that little DT next to his name. So that's going to drop him a long way down the order.
We've only got 6 pro cars in the field now, so he is going to drop, I think, to 5th. So he'll still pick up points.
Okay.
Verhagen is the last of the pro cars, but he's down in last position in 16th spot. So I'm not sure the penalty would be big enough to drop him behind that. So again, worth continuing.
Yeah. That's Nicky Team going ahead of Lorenzo Petresi. That's a pro ahead of a silver. Raffaele Marciello, second on the road. He is the leading pro, incidentally. So I know I said he has a chance to win this, but whether Raffaele feels it's worth going for or whether he'll just take the class winning points remains to be seen.
Also, it's his teammate in front of him as well.
Well, that's true,
yeah.
Yes. I mean, either way, they're going to have the class results, but for as long as he is there between Mosca and Arca, of course, he's acting as a buffer, isn't he? A rear guard for Tommaso Mosca. Rougier has just got himself back ahead of van der Linde, and van der Linde is dropping. Is he in the pit lane?
Doing his drive-through penalty now.
He's also got a stop-go for his collision with Nomoto.
And he can't take that at the same time, so that's a lot of in and out of pit lane. He might actually drop behind Neil Verhagen on that one.
Should do now, shouldn't he? So there's the drive-through, then there is the stop-go, and it's a 10-second stop-go that Kelvin van der Linde will get. So his sins are coming back to haunt him now. So Marciello, 3.5 seconds back, but as I say, I think he might be content to sit there now. Nicky Team 7th, fending off Lorenzo Petresi. So in the silvers, you've got Mosca from Arca from Nomoto. In pro, Marciello from Verhagen from Arthur Rougier. And out of 28 that were on the grid, we've only got 18 still circulating after assorted travails.
Acker ASP in the lead of both pro and silver, and Attempto in second position of both pro and silver as well. 2 Lamborghinis in third position, although from Vincenzo Sospiri and Emil Frey. And then Aston Martin 4th in pro, with BMW, I would have thought, 5th and last of our pro cars if Kelvin van der Linde comes out in front. And this is where you would need your spotter to tell you, don't give up. You are now scoring points. You might well be last. You might well be 15th overall, but actually you will score points, because actually Neil Verhagen, his display won't show that. He'll show the cars around him, and it will show him in his overall position. It might show him in his class position, but don't give up, Neil, because you are going to score 1 more point from your 5 from the last event.
And who knows what dramas might be lurking up the road for others. Janis Fitje you're looking at, as he in the number 4 Mercedes that comes from the Haupt Racing Team stable. Hubert Haupt's team heads up towards the timing line. Lorenzo Petresi just up the road ahead of him. Petresi in the car collection Audi. and Nicky Team is not really getting away from them there. Drive through for Patrese. I think we covered that off, hadn't we, from earlier on for contact with Stuart White.
Yeah, so he's going to drop out of that point-scoring position, isn't he?
But he was given that quite a long time ago, and he's not yet served it, interestingly.
I don't know whether we have that 3-lap rule that you would have in real-world series, that they have to serve that penalty within a couple of laps, otherwise you get a black flag. That's how it is in the Motorsport UK ruling, but maybe not in the virtual world. He can take it, but it will be converted into a time penalty if he doesn't take it in the race. Maybe the team have decided that it's better to take the time penalty than to take the drive-through penalty, because it's such a long pit lane here that it actually maths works out better.
And like you say, this is where you need somebody in your ear, just as you would in the real world, advising you. There's somebody there you can see in the arena having a big moment, lots of arm twirling going on. Trying to identify who that is as we look at the Mercedes there. Oh, it could have been the Moto, because he's just brought out a yellow flag and has lost a place to Rougier.
Yep, absolutely. Good spot. And drops down the order, so out of a point-scoring position. Is that a bail? Yes, it is. Oh dear, there's not enough cars to bail now. You want to stay in regardless of what you do.
Yeah, Nemoto into the pits. He's briefly shown as the race leader, but I think, as you say, he's bailed. So Mosca leads Marciello by 3.3 seconds. Alex Arca third. He's another 4 seconds back. So up front, it's kind of stabilising now, but Janis Fitlia here, still chasing on with Lorenzo Patrese just up the road ahead of him.
Stuart White should now therefore pick up a point for Emil Frey as well. At the moment showing outside the points, but with that retirement for Nemoto and Patrese's drive-through, he should get up some points. And Nemoto, yes, now confirmed in the pits, as is Patrese. So Patrese is taking that stop, potentially so he can actually recover.
Pit lane's pretty busy with so many retirements. Tommaso Mosca then still leads the way. There is Janis Fitlia now clear, so he's getting up the order. So also into the top 9 now, Jean-Baptiste Simonard in the WRT Audi, and behind is Nicolas Bart in number 26, another of the Audi fleet, that from the Santilot Junior team. Nicolas Bart, of course, quick TCR racer. So Tommaso Mosca is having his day of days, isn't he? Because into the last third of the race now, he is clear of Raffaele Marciello, and that margin still hovers around the 3 seconds.
Yeah, I think if the Williams Esport boys and Mercedes AMG are sensible, they'll be on the radio to both those two saying, hold position, no need to push, you've got 5 points, you've got 10 points for the team in total, that's all you can get, and that's great. The only person that's going to really threaten you is Alex Acker, and you've got to say, massive cred to Raffaele Marciello, who didn't qualify particularly well, had a lot of traffic to contend with in those early laps, but has got himself up to now within 3.6 seconds. The pit stop was brilliant. Mosca has also been equally brilliant, but in a very different way, because he hasn't necessarily had to fight on track with it. Him and Alex Acker were very kind to each other. There wasn't too much shopping of paint, and therefore the pressure was there, but not necessarily the arguing over tarmac.
And Nikolai Schiergaard still goes strongly in the McLaren. 12th he is, on the tail of Lorenzo Patrese, who's rejoined after his drive-through penalty. Nikolai Schiergaard really is now the only McLaren driver in the remaining 16, and actually make that 15, because Matteo Cairoli hasn't been seen for 20 laps, so we've lost him from the race as well. Neil Verhagen, 14th overall now. Kelvin van der Linde, in fairness, has continued in the race, but Nikolai Schiergaard, former single-seater racer, struggles to get the car to bite, doesn't he, there, heading up through the Bendor. Left-hander did not seem to have the poise, did not want to turn in and get to the apex.
Interesting that some of these bigger teams not only jump in their car to set up their car, they also then evaluate the other cars to see what the pluses and minuses are of the different models. So you might be working for Lamborghini, let's say, but you have the opportunity in the virtual world to go out in a McLaren and see how that car feels, see what you are losing as a Lamborghini driver to a McLaren driver, which of course absolutely would never happen in the real world. The cost of it, for starters, to test all the different cars, and then just the inability to have access to a works McLaren when you're a works Lamborghini driver. But that is the kind of level that some of these guys are going into. in this as well as the SRO Esports in general, just to make sure they have all the information they possibly need. Perhaps, for instance, the Lamborghini will run out of tyres at the end of the race. It's good to know that because you then don't overwork yours to catch them.
Now, Tommaso Mosca, of course, who was on pole position running without any weight. Raffaele Marciello running without any weight. Alex Arca, silver winner at Imola, 30 kilos. Now, he is, I reckon, being caught a little bit by Pohaka. He's got 10 kilos, but are we anticipating later in the race, like now, with only 20 minutes or so to go, are we expecting that weight might now play a factor?
I think absolutely, because you do compromise your setup because of the weight. You work the car in different ways because of the weight, and therefore you're going to effectively work the tyres. I don't know exactly what temperature we're at here. 6:50 in the evening, you would expect the temperatures to be dropping on track. But yeah, certainly those guys with a bit more weight could start to see the end of their Pirelli tyres at the end of this race. And the amount of data that pass through Kunos, Simulazione and Pirelli, as you well know, David, from speaking to the guys that designed the track, absolutely 100% shared information. Pirelli gave every bit of information they had on their tyres to simulate as best possible how they behave in the real world. So there shouldn't, there's always going to be difference between real and virtual, but the Pirelli tyres and their behaviour should not be one of them.
Well, certainly Pohaka in that lighter Attempto Audi is the quicker of the two right now. His last lap was a tenth or so faster than that of teammate Alex Arca. But again, you come back to the balance of performance. These cars are designed to be very evenly matched, and therefore, unless somebody makes a mistake, or you're Arthur Rougier, you're not going to find big chunks of time. Rougier was the one exception with that storming display early on. But these cars ran out of the same stable. In theory, should be identical in setup. They are going to be very evenly matched indeed, and Pohaka finding it harder now to claw back lost time.
But again, Attempto Racing versus Attempto Racing, they're getting the same amount of points because they're in different classes. So if you're clever, if you're part of the team, you just say do not, whatever you do, compromise each other's pace. They've got a good gap over Arthur Rougier, who's 18.8 back. The battle I'm looking at is for 9th and 10th overall, Simonauer and Nicolas Bart. They're fighting over the last possible sim points, and there could be, there's less than a second between those two. There they are on screen, and both, Nicolas Bart's the first time he's got into the race. He qualified in the first round of the championship. We only had 26 sims in the building, and therefore he was unable to get into the race because we didn't have enough sims for him. Now we've added a couple more sims into the Fanatec Arena. He's able to partake, and it looks as though for Sansalok, perhaps getting some points.
Neil Verhagen being given another penalty, I think, for contact with Yuki Nomoto. So Neil Verhagen, after his really impressive showing at Imola, struggling here.
And Kelvin van Linder's still ahead of him, so still picking up 1 point despite everything.
Right, so Mosca to Marciello, that gap suddenly come down, 2.6 seconds. Good little Audi fight here, where you've got Jean-Baptiste Simonauer 9th, Nicolas Bart you're looking at in 10th place. So you're looking at him because it's got the little red background to his number, showing that he's the one on the screen. But Alex Arca with the purple background to his position, that's to show he's done the fastest lap of the race. And interestingly, Lorenzo Petresi last time and Neil Verhagen last time doing personal best laps. Now granted, the cars are much, much lighter on fuel now, but you'd think that the tyres were starting to cry enough.
It's one of the things that we know about Nils Naujoks' setups with those BMWs that we've seen in the SRO Esports online series, is he's able to do that, isn't he? 55 minutes in the race, he's able to still have enough grip. Here is a replay from quite a while ago of Kelvin van der Linde. This is the second attempt, isn't it, down the inside, 3 wide, and there's a little bit of contact here, which bounces the Ferrari twice into the Lamborghini and sends Arthur Rougier, I think, missing out on the not hitting a barrier, but that was why we lost Nicholas Nielsen, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and that was one of Kelvin van der Linde's 3 incidents in this race, which are not like him. To be fair to the guy, as we were saying, last year he was utterly dominant around here, but that's not exactly been the easiest hour for him, nor for many others. So Kelvin van der Linde persevering, trying to salvage a team point for WRT if he can. We've got just 12 minutes and change on the clock. hat tip to Tommaso Mosca. I was kind of anticipating that he would get mugged in this, but he has driven, find wood to touch, faultlessly. This has been a really impressive display. We're not done yet, 12 minutes to go, granted, but Tommaso Mosca looking mighty strong.
I feel as though it's not the first time we've seen him either.
It's not, but we've never had him this far up.
No.
I think he's going to get a nosebleed. He's so high up the order here. He's been, a midfielder, but this, from pole position, it shows again the importance of qualifying well, because you're ahead of all the dramas at the first corner. But Mosca here is looking like the real deal.
Absolutely, and once you're open to sim races helping you out, treating this like a brand new car to drive, and when Tommaso Mosca jumps into a Formula 2 car, you need an experienced Formula 2 driver to help you out, to understand how to get the best out of it. So many experienced drivers from the real world jumping into a sim think that they should be able to know exactly how it works. If you treat this like a new car, if you treat this and the sim drivers with respect and listen to their feedback, I think that's what's paying dividends here. That is why we're seeing that team first in both categories. Marcello's always been a really, really strong competitor, but now to come through the pack at the pace that Marcello had, I think it's testament to what the Williams Esports guys have done over the last couple of days here, and obviously in preparation for the event too. And really, really great for Williams to be partnership with Mercedes-AMG, and for Jan Seifert to come at the last event and to look around and go, you know what, we need to put a lot of effort from Mercedes Esports into this platform. And really, other than BMW, we don't really see that kind of level of support from any other manufacturer, bar Ferrari, but they only have one car to look after.
You're right, and it's been a long time coming, but it's good that Mercedes has now embraced this. And of course, interesting also that Jan Seifert for many seasons was a real world racer, had his link with Audi when he ran the TT Cup after Audi manufacturer money was withdrawn. He persevered with it for a couple of seasons, but now very much connected to a different brand. Now up front, Tommaso Mosca, you're watching him at work. He does look a little bit hot and bothered, but understandably, because it's a hot evening at Paul Ricard.
Yeah, we lost the air conditioning when we lost the power in half the building.
I'm aware of that, dripping as I stand here. But Mosca just looking mighty. He knows that Marcello is behind him. If he makes a mistake, Raffaele won't need a second invitation to go for the race lead. But into the last 10 minutes now, Mosca looking pretty relaxed.
And Mosca looking to the left-hand side, and to his left is his teammate Raffaele Marcello. So wants to actually look at his screen to see what he's seeing, whether he can glean any information from that.
Turns right through Signe. The feel of the real world car and the curbs coming through the steering wheel. Hustles it towards Le Bousset, runs it wide. Ooh, there's the apex for the second bit. Get back on the path, nail it, put it out of the corner. Second gear, turn into Bendor. And now towards the Courbe du Village.
Interesting how much traction control he's running there. We've got the traction control and the ABS set to 3. We tend to see the real pro drivers jump in and turn those things straight off. They don't want any assistance whatsoever, but maybe at the end of the race, as the tyres start to wear out, then you just add a little bit just to aid you, and it's also a bit of a safety thing considering how far into the race we have and so how much of a gap he has. As this little battle for last point in silver is now coming alive.
Well, that's Simonard just ahead of Bart, but only just. So WRT play Santalot as the two cars run through together. Santalot Junior Team Audi, the red-backed car of Nicolas Bart. The Belgian driver looks to get the inside of former Carrera Cup hero Jean-Baptiste Simonard. A tap in the tail, I thought was about to come there, but Nicolas Bart just checked up his pace. Only 8 more minutes on the clock then. This is going to go down to the wire, isn't it? We are talking about 9th and 10th overall. Both of these are silvers, and it's the last silver position in the points. Simonard is 5th in class and Bart 6th, though this matters.
And if one of them does end up off track, there is Patrese still running out of the points right now, but could inherit a position if we lose both of these cars. So they do need to be careful. If both of them retire and Patrese retires, then one of them actually does get the point. Where is the car on the inside? Has he made it stick round the outside of the first part? It looks like he has. Great move from Nicolas Bart.
Except Jean-Baptiste Simonard wants to try and fight back if he can, but Nicolas Bart, as you say, has done the work. He's managed to stay ahead by a couple of lengths. I think he's done that. He should be able to consolidate that to the end. Just thinking, Audis, I'm intrigued to know why Alex Arca not only lost so much time in the pits, but has never been able to claw it back. 8 seconds away from the second place car now. And of course he was well ahead of Marcello before the stops.
Yeah, so he's lost 3 or 4 seconds in this second stint, hasn't he? Where he was very much on the tail of Moscow at the early part of the race. I wonder how much the Mistral Straight plays into keeping you in a pack. I know in the world of touring cars, it kind of keeps the pack together because you need that slipstream. But in GT3 racing, I suppose 1.1 kilometers, it sounds a bit more like an IndyCar race when they come up and down this straight. But as you say, Acker just hasn't been there the second half of the race at all. And
no.
Poacher just nibbling away at the gap.
Exactly. He is nibbling, but not getting a full tummy out of this, is he? He just can't get close enough. The cars, as I said a few laps ago, so evenly matched. It's hard to claw back anything other than the odd 10th here and there. But Alex Arca, 99, 66 there. You said Poacher's certainly not given up. Remember, again, they're in different classes. Poacher is the pro, whereas Arca is in the silver category. So Jussi Poacher, irrespective of where he finishes overall, he's only going to be at best second in class. So he may as well just preserve the position.
Yeah, I think so. And you also don't want to compromise your teammate by going side by side and potentially getting a crash for nothing. With our two top groups in different classes, it has kind of created a bit of a stalemate. Arthur Rouget quite a way back from the two Audis, 17.9 seconds says the timing screen. I wondered whether Nicky Team would be able to get on the back of Arthur Rouget and his Aston Martin. Only Aston Martin in the field, but Nicky hasn't been able to get that close. The key thing for that, though, is that Nicky did get decent points in the first round and will get some in this round, whereas Verhagen is going to be out the points by the looks of things. Even with the 1 million penalties that Van der Linde took, he still will score 1 point for WRT.
Well, right now, the Attempto drivers are going to be second in their respective classes, both Pro and Silver. Tommaso Mosca leading by 3 seconds. Arca has the consolation, if you like, of the fastest lap of the race overall. But that car's pace had kind of gone out the pit window, hadn't it? Because that fastest lap was done very early on in the race. We are now on lap 28. 27 are in the book. 3 seconds the leading margin. 5 minutes are on the clock. And with a lap at just under 2 minutes, we're looking at about 3 more laps of the race now. So over the line goes Arca. The Attempto Audi turns through third. And this is a driver that's maturing all the time in real world as well as in sim racing, having come out of national level Porsche racing before going into GT3 style cars. Verhagen behind him. Super Trofeo Lamborghini graduate. And Arthur Rouget, 5th. Still circulating, still doing a good job.
I think, again, perseverance is key. The guys who did this championship last year know that very well. Rouget, some points picking up the full 3 points it was at that point. We've now awarding points up to 5th position, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A maximum of 25 across the 5-round championship. And there's not only Rafael Marcello pretty chilled, he's on the Mistral Straight. He's looking around the room, not even looking at the screen. I don't think you do that in the real car, I have to say. But it is such a long, long straight that he has the opportunity to relax those hands off the steering wheel and to look around. He's got the camera down there. His teammate to the right-hand side of him. No one in the left-hand side sim now.
There's the Audi battle still. Bart ahead of Simonauer. As Jean-Baptiste coming back, isn't it, Nicolas Bart? He's not letting him get away. Very, very rapid indeed, heading down towards Le Col. But the Santalok Audi rattles it out wide over the curb. Jean-Baptiste Simonauer in the Rofco Gulf colours for WRT, right there behind, 9th and 10th overall. And remember, these are 5th and 6th in silver. So the one behind is going to be disappointed.
But Simonauer so neat through that second sector and now back onto the tail of the Santalok Audi just ahead of him. This could be an opportunity for Simonauer to get back at him. I think Bart has been pushing those tyres quite hard. They do overheat in this ACC platform, and it takes a while to bring them back again if you have pushed them over the limit. Not quite close for Simonauer to get through there. There's not that much of a difference in speed differential, but they both run very, very wide. Now to the inside at Beausset, claims the apex, a little bit of kissing between the two, and that's a great fight back from Jean-Baptiste.
It is indeed. He was lucky to hang on to it through Beausset, wasn't he? Because he arrived very, very quickly. Had to control a big, big slide. Now, Nicolas Bart has been ahead. He's already proved he can overtake, and he'll want to get back past, especially given that we're running out of time, running out of laps in this race now as they head towards the Virage du Pont once more then. So first of all through Tours they come, and now the Virage du Pont towards the end of the lap, but a good run out of this tight right onto the pit straight is going to be key to Nicolas Bart being able to repeat the move down at turn 1.
Being tidy, being just neat and not sliding around, not pushing too hard in the braking zones. You could see on that last left-hander how Nicolas dived very, very late on the brakes and then disappeared out of shot because he then had to clamber to get the apex. Again, turns in a bit earlier. Very tricky the first 2 turns of the Paul Ricard lap. That second part of it off camber, and you really have to be patient. And again, if you try and attack that, you just run wide and you overheat the fronts, and with only 1 minute and 45 seconds, they've already done quite a lot of work. And this will be disappointing for Nicolas Bart if he does end up losing out. But look, this time, Jean-Baptiste having to go defensive there, and that should then re-invite Nicolas Bart to have an opportunity down the Mistral straight. It's close again.
It is indeed. While the clock hits 90 seconds, just keep an eye to where Tommaso Mosca is, because he's heading towards a win, but I reckon he's going to squeeze one more lap out of it. If he can get another lap, it gives these drivers another lap to attack or defend, depending on which one you look at. Nicolas Bart then riding shotgun along the Mistral straight, no chicanes put in for these cars, so it is absolutely foot nailed to the boards. There is the race leader onto his last lap. There is Nicolas Bart to the outside line, and he's ahead. He's 9th, but he's on the wrong line. He's on the Van der Linde line, but he's got the job done just before he turns into the corner. That was great stuff.
Applause from the arena here, and very, very brave to turn in. You do have a radar on the screen to tell you if you've got an overlap, and he has an overlap once more as Jean-Baptiste holds the inside line. It's a very, very tricky one to do. Didn't quite have the car in front at the apex, and Bart's gone around the outside twice now.
Fantastic racing. There's going to be one more lap for them, so Nicolas Bart is ahead. Can he stay ahead? Not if Jean-Baptiste Simonin has a say in it, he won't. The race leader, though, on his last lap, Tommaso Mosca now will make that run once more from the first few corners round towards the Mistral straight, then relax a little bit more. Nicolas Bart cannot relax at all. Here comes Jean-Baptiste Simonin once again. The Audis, the R8 LMS, almost nose to tail as they break the beam. Last lap for the pair of them. The fight for 9th rages on.
Not close enough to make a move into turn 1. Nicolas Bart does turn in quite early there. Shuts the door. But does that compromise his run down to the far end of the circuit? Because the WRT Audi draws on to the tail, and maybe Nicolas Bart's in the wrong place. It's a bit like a Formula Ford race, isn't it, where you have to decide where you are going to be before the last lap so that you don't lose a position on the last lap.
Yes, you don't want to be ahead on the Mistral because you then give a tow to the car behind, don't you? So as the two of them now head up towards the Mistral for the last time, Nicolas Bart with a good exit should be just about able to stay ahead. He does stay ahead, but this is where Jean-Baptiste Simonin tries to do to Bart what Bart did a lap ago to the checkered flag, though, and a race win comes Tommaso Mosca. Fantastic drive. It is a win for the Mercedes, and Tommaso Mosca for the Agudis ASP team wins at Paul Ricard. It's a 1-2 for the squad as Raffaele Marciello takes second, Alex Harker third, and Tommaso Mosca a very well-deserved victory. We'll hear from our winning drivers shortly when they get to the podium, but we're not done yet as far as the results are concerned, as Giuseppe Hacker comes through for 4th, 5th Arthur Rougier, 6th Nicky Thiem ahead of Janis Fittier. But what about the Audis? Simonin back up on the inside of Bart. He's got the line off the corner. They touch this time. It's getting more fractious with only a couple of corners to go. Jean-Baptiste Simonin round the outside, runs out of traction, and ahead of him goes Nicolas Bart then. So Nicolas Bart is ahead of him, and he should surely be able to hang on in there now for the last few corners. Up towards the timing line they will come. Checker flag is at the ready for them. 6th has been already home, Nicky Thiem. 7th, Janis Fittier. 8th, Stuart White. And Nicolas Bart, with one corner to go, is indeed going to finish 9th. Jean-Baptiste Simonin out of the Silver Cup points in 10th position. So, a restarted race, but a fantastic race, and certainly a very good drive by Tommaso Mosca. He will take the win. Everybody in the arena looking pretty hot and bothered about it, but our race winner is with Ben Constanduros.
Thank you very much, David. Yes, here with Tommaso Mosca, which I can feel the heat coming off Tommaso. Unbelievable effort that you've had to put in here today. Where's this performance come from? Because fastest lap, pole position, and the race win.
Yeah, we worked a lot on it. So thanks to the guys of Acodis, also Raffaele was very fast. So we are very happy to be in first and second place. So thank you very much.
And just how hard have you worked? I mean, ultimately, you've led from start to finish. You didn't have too much pressure, but it seems like it was a workout.
Yeah. In the first laps, I got a lot of pressure from the Audi behind. Then I got some gap between me and the second place, so it was okay. So thank you very much.
Let's go over to Raffaele Marcello, who is winner also, and a great effort from the Williams guys who are in the background of the shot, and Mercedes. Raffaele, you're not quite as steaming as your teammate, but you had a lot of work to do because you didn't qualify that well, but to get up to second, you had great pace in the car.
Yeah, I just started to drive this morning. I didn't have so much time to practice before today, but luckily we have the Williams guy that made a really good setup. Yeah, also my team Acodis did a mega job because finished 1-2. It's really great, so it's a good result, and I'm happy, and let's see to bring it also in a real track.
You've done this event a couple of times last year. How different is it having that support of a professional esports team as well as your real world team?
No, for sure. I mean, last year you always ask around a good setup. I know some people in the simulator world, so more or less they always gave me a good setup. But for sure to have someone on track is a bit more special, yeah.
All right, we're going to get the podiums sorted in just a second. Congratulations. Let's get over to the podium ceremony then. And we will kick off the podium ceremony with our podium for our Silver Cup. Our top 5 in the Silver Cup, so everyone's a winner today. What I do need, however, is a piece of paper that says who were our top 5 in the silver category. It is coming to me in just a second. I hope you enjoyed that. I know that it's been pretty hot in the Fanatec arena for all these drivers. You would not believe the temperature coming off our race winner. He's absolutely sweating buckets, and it's been quite a workout for him. So he is our winner. Is that my piece of paper? Yes, it is. Right, let's get the podium for the Silver Cup underway then. First of all, we're going to do our 5th and 4th position. So in 5th position for Santalot Racing, I believe, Nicolas Bart in 5th position. Nicolas, please come and receive your trophy and your 500 euros. Where is Nicolas? I know many of these drivers will be heading straight to their garages. 4th position then, Stuart White for Emil Frey. Well done, Stuart. 1,500 euros for Stuart White. And the check is presented by the boss of Kunos Simulazione. In 3rd position, Jonas Fitje for a Haupt Racing Team. In 2nd position, Alex Acker for Attempto Racing. Here comes Alex. And they might be big checks, but they are absolutely valuable. Everyone's worked hard here. And the winner in the 2nd round of the silver class of the Fanatec GT Pro Series, it is Tommaso Mosca, also our overall winner. That might be the first time we've ever had a silver winner. Acodis ASP team, Mercedes AMG Esports and Williams Esports doing a great job. The trophies, the pedals from Fanatec, and the check of 6,000 euros. Congratulations to our Silver Cup podium. If you guys can vacate the podium, we'll do the Pro Series top 5 now. And after all that, I'm not sure he's still here, but oh, he is. After all that, Kelvin van der Linde, with penalties and drive-throughs, gets 5th position for Team WRT, and therefore gets 500 euros. There you go. Congratulations, Kelvin van der Linde for Team WRT. In 4th position, Nicky Team for Beach Dean AMR. More points for the Aston Martin. Over here, Nicky. In 3rd position, and the first of our podium contenders, bullied on the lap 1, but still managed to get decent points. Arthur Rougier for Emil Frey. It's Robert Rossi who is presenting the checks. from Fanatec. There we go. And in second position, Attempto Racing, Jussi Puhaka. Jumps on the podium for second position, the cap as well. And a check for €4,000 from Robert Rossi from Fanatec. But a winner, another winner from Acodis ASP Mercedes, Rafael Marcello. 5 points for the championship. Lello has done it. Great effort from Acodis ASP, Mercedes and Williams. Hard work today, all in one day, and €6,000 going to our winners. That is our top 5 in the pro category. They're all going to run away very, very quickly because we have pre-qualifying happening on the circuit in just a few moments' time. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I know it's been a little bit tricky at the start, but we did have a great, entertaining encounter. It's been great to have you with us. We'll be back at Spa-Francorchamps as support to the 24-hour race with another Fanatec Esports GT Pro Series. But for now, enjoy your sim racing. Bye-bye.